Welcome, everyone, to another segment of the 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. Joining us today is Reynoldsburg Chief of Police, Curtis Baker. Welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Got a kind of a jam-packed show full of a lot of interesting things. Normally, we start things off with kind of like a review of code enforcement, but it's actually probably a good thing that Chief Baker is here because the city of Reynoldsburg actually got written up for code enforcement. I'm hopeful that we can avoid any jail time, but you know what? We're holding ourselves accountable. If you drive by City Hall, you'll see that some of our steps and entryway has been power washed and clean. So, you know, when we go out to different areas of town, talking to businesses to go ahead and get them to clean up their areas, we're doing that ourselves as well. So I think that people in code enforcement might have had a little bit too much fun sending me a violation notice, but there you go. So we do have that one. I don't have any pictures to share this time because we're kind of in between a couple of things, but obviously we'll get back to that as soon as some new things come in. Got a couple of events to talk about. Everybody's favorite Thursday event is tomorrow, again, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at JFK is our farmers market. I will be out there the entire time answering questions about the potential for the Wagner Road development. Probably will sneak a couple of maybe small little cake pops from the Tiny Baker that's out there, so that'll be something that we can see, as well as some of the other fun stuff that's coming out on the farmers market. So again, tomorrow between 4 and 7 at JFK Park. And we also want to recognize that this Friday is Parks and Recs Day, recognition of all the Parks and Recs groups all the way throughout the state of Ohio, and I believe throughout the entire country. We're going to recognize what they do every day. And again, this year is no different than any other, anything from maintaining our Parks and Recs grounds to getting ready for soccer season this fall. I know that we're up to a couple hundred, I think 300-400 people have signed up for fall soccer, and we're still hopeful that that's going to go on here. We actually were at Civic Park, Parks and Rec team was at Civic Park the other day, kind of mapping out with where everybody would go with social distancing, so we've got that going on. So we're looking forward to seeing how that works out. So now we're going to go ahead and start talking to Chief Baker here. First of all, kind of the big question that we always ask when we start off is, how are you and your family dealing with this new world of COVID outside of the fact that you're in law enforcement?
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, you came along, you kind of got thrust into the moment with floods, with COVID, and really that's really consumed our lives, both professionally and privately. So my wife, Jenny, works from home. So she wasn't real excited when school was moved to home. She's not an educator. I don't think she fully understood the work that educators do. And now she's fully aware. So working from home and then trying to teach your children and keeping that balance has been very rough. But we're working through it. We're planning for the fall, and we're kind of just making things happen and going from there.
Now, I know your son plays baseball, right?
Yes.
How's that been with all these new requirements? How's that been like?
Yeah, so it hasn't been bad. So the season was delayed. One of my hobbies is coaching youth athletics. I coach baseball, football, and basketball. So my son plays on a travel team. And the season was delayed about a month, and then they allowed us to start up in June. So we've tried to pack a lot in a short amount of time. We're finishing up this weekend, but we have put some safety protocols in place. So they did things like remove metal benches. We have hand sanitizers. We rotate balls in and out. They can't share equipment. So it's kind of added a lot for 8-year-olds to try to keep them on the same page with these safety protocols. But you know, it's been really good just to be able to get out of the house and do something and burn off that energy for the kids. So I'll take what they gave us and be happy with it.
Okay. Yeah, I cannot imagine when we first saw some of the requirements are coming out, you know, wearing masks, you know, when you're not in the field, but you're wearing masks, you know, on the bench, but you're not actually sitting on a bench, you have to separate and things like that. So it's definitely a change, but I didn't know you coached, that you coached some of those things. So good luck. Because there's nothing more valuable than a volunteer coach, and at the same time, it can be a little bit of a miserable experience.
Yes.
With certain things. So
I've had coaches and teachers throughout my life, and you know, I grew up on the west side of Columbus here, went to Weston High School. I grew up not far from the casino, so you know, my life could have taken different paths. And coaches, teachers, and of course my parents had a big impact on my life growing up. So it's something that I was kind of dedicated to do for my children and other children in the community.
Yeah, we appreciate it. As far as You've been chief now, I know acting chief for a while, but officially chief from just a couple of weeks ago. What's been the biggest difference between being, the deputy chief now to the chief, aside from the fact you have to talk to me a lot more?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is the communication within the department. So, ultimately the decisions that were made prior to me being named chief were not mine. I gave recommendations, I gave advice, but ultimately the chief's accountable for those decisions. Well, now I have nobody to point the finger to if something goes wrong, and you're in that position also. I mean, you have to make a decision, and these aren't easy decisions. We're dealing with situations that have not occurred for 100 years, and we have to make tough decisions, whether they're employee decisions or decisions for the agency, and not everybody's going to agree with those decisions. And you have to stand by them. You have to just try to make the best decisions you can with the information you have and move on. So the accountability factor is that there's nobody else that you can hold accountable but yourself, and I'm okay with that. I'm prepared to take that responsibility.
Well, it was impressive to see all of the candidates, yourself included, actually wanting to be chief of police at this particular moment in time. Police across the United States have it's been a difficult time all the way around, and so for you to actually want to step into that role and kind of take a lead position has been great. I know we've had a number of social protests in Reynoldsburg over the last couple of months, and it's been great to see the cooperation and the communication between RPD and anyone who wants to express their First Amendment rights, where it's not a hostile environment, it's not confrontational, it's actually collaborative. Right. I know you and I have talked a number of times about one of some of our goals is that the things that we do here in Reynoldsburg are not the same as other jurisdictions, and what we need to do is find ways to get that information out to people so that way they understand that what you may see in other communities outside of the state of Ohio are not things that are actually being done in Reynoldsburg, which is a good thing. So I know we'll continue to work on kind of getting that information out there.
Yeah, I think it's been a great partnership. When you have situations like this, you need leadership to step forward and work together. And I think we've been able to do that. We've been able to do that with people exercising their civil rights. The number one thing police should do is to protect people's civil rights, whether you agree with what they're doing, whether they like you, whether they dislike you. And that's the number one purpose for our agency. So we want to ensure that those rights are protected and people can express themselves as long as it's in a peaceful manner.
Yeah. All right, this is probably not the most difficult question you're ever going to get, but I was asked by somebody, a neighbor of ours. They saw that we're getting a new canine car.
Yes.
So they know that a new canine is coming. How are we going to, what's the name? You know that this is going to come. I mean, we've had a lot of people just kind of curious, is it going to be named something, again, Reynoldsburg specific, because you have Raider, you have Summit, is it going to be, well, I don't want to give away any potentials, but I mean, I know that in the past they've had community involvement. But have you gotten to that part yet?
Yeah, we haven't actually settled on a particular dog. So there are several dogs that are up for our choosing, and it's so early in the process right now. It's hard to tell which one will be the right fit for our agency. As far as a name, that would be something we would discuss with you. That is something that we can do. I would like to have it be of a local flavor. I think that adds a lot to the community, but that's something we'll need to discuss here probably pretty
quick. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. It's my wife and I actually were in the car talking about it the other week as we're trying to figure out what kind of name would go with again with Raider and Summit and things like that. I did notice it, and I can't remember, and I apologize for not remembering, but somebody actually made a donation to the canine program just the other day I saw on social media.
Yes, that was a local State Farm agent. They have I think it's called a Good Neighbor Grant Program that they give up to $500 to different community initiatives, and they called us and said, hey, would you be able to use this money for anything? So, it was really perfect timing because canine equipment is not cheap, as you see in the budget each year. So that will help us outfit that particular canine. So we're going to use it for the new dog that's coming in.
All right, looking forward to it. Now comes the hard part. Any community? Well, I know we have a couple community questions. So go ahead if we want to start with a few of our questions.
Yeah, we have 2 questions from Angela Abram. Her first one is, what does the COVID protocol for getting pulled over look like? I'm asking for younger and newer drivers who may not know what to do with regards to mask recognition.
Yeah, that's good. So we ask anytime that you're going to be within 6 feet of somebody to wear a mask. That's pretty much been the mandate that's come out. Our officers in particular have been directed to try to limit the exchange of documents. So while in the past they may have asked you for a driver's license, instead they may just ask you for your name, date of birth, or social security number. So that's to protect both the officer and the occupants of those vehicles. So I would just listen to the officer. The directions they give you may be a little bit different than what they've given you in the past, but we are really trying to limit that close contact when we don't need to have the close contact, and limit the exchange of documents.
So kind of, I think maybe just the other part. So if, as the officer is approaching the car, the window goes down, officer probably has the mask on. Would they ask the person in the car to put a mask on at that time, or?
Yeah, they typically wouldn't. They would be able to keep the distance. There is exceptions in the law for law enforcement if there needs to be close contact. If something does not go right, then they would not have a mask on. But can we take it a step further here? It's a good reminder of what to do when police stop you. So it was something, my dad taught me at an age when I began driving. But, we ask if the police stop you, if you could just keep your hands in a visible place. So typically what I do is just, not that I get pulled over a lot, but it's happened.
Nice save. Nice save.
Put your hands up on the steering wheel, and then you just take directions from the officer. So that makes it easier. There's no conflict, and it's really going to shorten the time that you spend with that officer in that traffic stop.
Well, because I can imagine that, from the perspective as you're walking up to a car and you see someone, let's say their mask is sitting in the seat beside them and they go reach for it, I can see how that would be, something that there would be a concern. So I think, the 10 and 2 type of an aspect of things.
Okay. Angela's second question is, will there be any opportunities for the community to engage with RPD so that we can meet on equal footing as opposed to during a moving violation or a legal reason?
Yes, so we talked about having town hall meetings with the mayor. I also want the community to know that my door is always open. So whenever there's a concern, if you have a concern whether we've done something right, we've done something wrong, if you have questions about why we've done something, I will always take your call. My door is always open for any community member. We do have body cams now that we wear, so if you hear that something had happened, I just ask before you form an opinion that we sit down, and if you have a concern, we'll watch the incident and what really occurred. But anytime there's a question about what we do or why we've done something, I would ask that you reach out to me, and we'll make time to answer those questions. We also are implementing some programs through the community. So we have something that's called the Illumination Project that we've done in the past. And we have just done that. We in the past, we've opened the doors, allowed the community to come in, and there wasn't a lot of participation. We would sometimes have 30, 32 people, but a lot of times there was like 5 or 10. So we made that available, and there wasn't a lot of people interested in it. So what I found through my law enforcement career is the best way to build those relationships is to have programs where you're actually communicating, you're doing activities. So a couple things that we've implemented. We just implemented a women's self-defense class last year. Officer Connors is in charge of that. It's been very well received by the public. And then a project for 2021 is the Citizens Police Academy. So it'll be a 5 to 7 week police academy for a couple hours each week. And you get to come, you get to meet the officers, you can kind of ask them questions of why they do certain things. And it's really about building that level of trust and understanding within the community. And so I think that's the way we want to go, to where there's something to gain from the community, and you get that interaction and relationship building. So a lot of the problems we have, even in our personal life and our professional life, is a lack of communication and a lack of understanding. And if we can find ways or forums to reach those goals, then that would be beneficial to both the community and the police agency.
And just to add on, because I know she's probably going to be curious, we actually have a meeting scheduled with Superintendent Brown tomorrow, actually, so we can talk with him. I know that schools are going to look a little bit different, or we're not sure exactly what schools are going to look like next year, but one of the things that we wanted to do is have a meeting to figure out how to have those kind of conversations in a school environment, because I think a lot of times, I'm not talking specifically like a DARE program, but some of the best experiences I had as a teacher when it concerned law enforcement was actually having an officer in the classroom with me, having some of these really good discussions about what to do when pulled over, or why do certain things happen in this way versus that way. And it gives the kids an opportunity to see somebody to see an officer in a position like Angela said, that it's not you're not getting pulled over. There's nothing controversial at that moment in time. And I think the more that RPD and our community can get to know each other as individuals and community members, I think that just benefits everybody all the way around. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works.
Yeah, through these discussions we've had within the last couple months, we've received a lot of questions from the community, from council, from city staff about what we do. And what I found is people really don't know what we do. And so we need to kind of build those relationships, get that information out there. And it's about coming to a mutual understanding about what we do, why we do it. And school is a perfect avenue to do that because you'll have kids that, we're all kids at one time. You'll have some interactions with police, and we want those interactions to go smoothly. We want them to be calm. We don't want there to be conflict where bad things could potentially happen. So we have to do that through education and relationship building, and that's the goal, to work with the schools to reach that goal.
All right. Any other questions?
Yes, we have one more here. This is from Juliet Doris Williams. It says, can you speak to the mask issue again? I observed several officers last week without a mask as they responded to an issue in my Reynoldsburg neighborhood. Where we are in Franklin County, part Reynoldsburg. The mask order was implemented at that point.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the date was or the specific call. So we have put out an order this week as Reynoldsburg passed the legislation. We've also outfitted the officers with masks. So they should be wearing them if they're within a 6-foot distance or in a public accessible area of a building. If we're standing out on the street and you're not within the 6 feet, that's not a violation of that ordinance, and that's okay. I would have to know the details exactly what happened, but if that's occurring, let me know. We will follow up on it because we did issue the directive. One other thing on the masking, don't want to start the mask debate because that sets off a firestorm, but I wanted to share kind of an initiative that we've worked together on because we have passed the legislation here in the city. All of our officers are equipped with disposable surgical masks. So the goal of this legislation is to get compliance with the legislation. It's not to write somebody tickets. It's not to arrest somebody. It's for the safety of the community. So each officer is issued a box of surgical masks. If somebody calls in a violation and we respond to it, the first thing we're going to do is offer a mask to the person to come into compliance. I know already I've stepped out of my car and went into a restaurant in my private life, and I realized, oh man, I forgot my mask, because it's something new. It's not in our habit to grab those masks yet. So there's going to be some time. So we have to be understanding as a community that it may not just be defiance to the legislation, and maybe somebody legitimately forgot to wear a mask. So we will provide those to those people and move forward.
Okay.
That's all we have right now.
That's all we have right now? All right. Again, you're more than welcome. I know that you're busy, but if you would like to stay, you're more than welcome to stay as we kind of go through some other things. Oh, we got something there.
Had one more question that came in. One question was about National Night Out and what we were doing with that. So National Night Out was supposed to occur on August 4th. With COVID, obviously, that was pushed back. We do have a new date scheduled for October 6th. Right now, we're kind of on a standby to see where this COVID goes. We have had an increase in cases within Franklin County, so we're keeping an eye on that. So we'll make a decision probably within the next 30 days whether we're going to be able to go forward with National Night Out. In place of that, we have had, if anybody's seen our community resource officers that work at Taylor Square, we have a utility vehicle that was purchased by the city last year. So they have been directed and authorized to get that out into some neighborhoods, commercial shopping areas, and to use that vehicle to build the relationships and get out and talk to people. So you may see that around town a little bit more, but National Night Out will be up in the air. So we're going to have to make a decision on that soon.
I'd like to do something this year. That would be fun. Yeah. Not really sure what, but just something. One thing that we are going to do is, again, talking about the kind of transitioning here to the Wagner Road project. I'll be out at the farmers market the next 2 weeks to answer questions. We have some big display boards out there to kind of describe what the Wagner Road project looks like. I don't know how much you've seen of it, but basically sidewalks on one side and a bike path, a multi-purpose path on the other side. some lighting and some things of that nature, and a couple of different parts where it'll be wide into like kind of a 3-lane structure. Obviously, there was just an accident there just the other day to kind of highlight some of the safety concerns in that area. So this is something that we want to make sure we get a lot of feedback from the community. We're really at the early stages of this, so we're trying to engage as many community members as possible. So again, this is just another opportunity to do on this process. We're looking hopefully to apply for some grants and do some things like that in 2021. So that way we can start aiming for construction in 2023 in conjunction with raising some of the funds through the MI development that'll go there. But the best thing to do is just ask questions. We had a good virtual town hall just the other week that was relatively well attended. But again, it's about building that communication so people have that input in there. Which leads us to my next one. Some people may have noticed a bunch of people in bright orange or bright green, fluorescent green vests walking around Civic Park on Rose Hill. We were actually walking, some of the staff, to look at a potential secondary entrance into Civic Park. That's going to be my only little hint about what may come from Civic Park. But we did look at some locations. We think we know where it could possibly go. I shared with the chief just a little while ago. To make sure that it's a good location for traffic purposes, so that way there's clear visibility on all sides and things like that. But that's just one aspect of Civic Park that needs to be addressed, is that secondary entrance, especially for safety concerns. I talked with Chief Sharps from the Turo Township. One of the big concerns that always comes up is, if we have our 4th of July festival there, then what happens if something bad happens, that getting emergency vehicles in and out of that area. This will hopefully alleviate that. So we will have some really good things to share with you. We'll do a town hall just like we did for for Wagner Road, but we'll do a town hall on August 5th. And you can register at the time when it gets posted. You can register so you can sign up, so you can be in the Hollywood Squares boxes for the town hall, or you can send your question in through Facebook. But we're going to kind of go over some of the cool things that the Civic Park could potentially have and get community feedback with it. So that way we can kind of better utilize, I think, a great park that just doesn't have as many amenities as what they could. Things like a dog park and Frisbee golf are also other potential options. But that's it. I'm not going to say any more about that one. In addition to this, and it kind of does relate a little bit to your field, I've been asked to, from a number of people that live on Priestley. So for those of you that are watching that live on Priestley, close to the Wagner side, there's always been a lot of concerns about speeding. I know when I was doing my door-to-door thing earlier last year, that was a comment that came up on a number of occasions. So we're going to have basically another town hall specifically to address the traffic issues on Priestley, to talk about what the issues are, some data points that we've gotten from the police department about the average speed, how many cars, things like that. We're going to go over those types of things, and we're going to talk about what the options are. As speed bumps, speed tables, additional enforcement, stop signs, those types of things, to let everybody know, to have that kind of conversation. So if you're not obviously watching now, trust me, we're still going to get the word out to the people that live in that area. We're going to have one of our message boards up there about a week before, just highlighting everything that's going on and what, how they can attend or how they can watch on Facebook or social media and things like that. So everybody can kind of get an idea what goes on with Priestley on that one. Which is a great segue into the Community Commission update. Today is the last day to apply, and I'm a former teacher, so I'm really good about due dates. Today's the last day to apply to be a member of the Community Commission. If you watched our council meeting last Monday night, you know that we had roughly, I think, almost 40 different people that volunteered to be a part of some commission or another. So once we get all those names in and we kind of organize it, we'll get a virtual town hall thing going, so that way everybody can kind of join in virtually in this time of COVID. So we can have some further discussions about what kind of exact committees would be established. I know that all of the original ones that were submitted had multiple people that were interested in being on it, anything from neighborhood beautification to transportation, which would address the same things that we're going to do at Priestley, but it'll be kind of more of a citywide thing. So that way, if there are other areas, and I'm sure you probably know where you get most of the complaints of residential speeding more than anything else, as opposed to just me going and knocking on doors and having the residents tell me everything. And you did, and I appreciated it. But we'll kind of work on those things as well. We have got good numbers, but the deadline is today. So if you are interested, feel free to just go ahead and check. One of the email addresses that's listed there is my assistant, who's kind of managing and organizing all of these things. It's not a hard process to get involved. It's you send basically an email that says you're interested in what particular commission. There's no real specific requirements for it. If you have a preference of one committee, if you could list that, but if you're willing to serve on a couple of different ones, we're going to try and even it all out. The only one that is going to take a little bit longer is going to be the police commission. That'll be something that is going to be dealt with at a later time because it's a different style of legislation that will go before council. It's also waiting for input when the chief gets it and takes a look at it and things like that. So we're going to work on that in the month of August. So that's information about our community commission. Do we have any questions?
I had one come in, Chief. You got time for one more question? Yeah. This is from Todd Davis. He says, is there a plan to have body cam footage publicly available or accessible to the public?
So body cam footage is a public record. So if there's a specific incident that you would like to see, view, or whatever, you just come into the police department, make a public records request, and it is released to you through public records.
Okay, all right. Now I've got a couple of things about development. Again, I mentioned a little bit on Monday night during the council meeting about what's going on development-wise. So I just kind of talk about a few things. In the Reynoldsburg Connects that's going to go out later today, it'll get into a little bit more detail about certain parts of it. But the reality is we're working hard every day. Our development director, Andrew Boucher, is doing a phenomenal job talking to people and getting people interested in our city. And believe it or not, we've had a lot of interest. I think if COVID had not hit the way it was, we'd be a little bit further along. But basically, we're making calls every day. So I'm going to go over a couple of quick things that I always see on social media. What's going on in such and such a location? Keep asking those questions. When you start to see construction in the city and you want to know what's going on, absolutely ask. I know that there's a Burger King that is going off on the old Tim Hortons site on 256. So that is one of those locations. So that's one thing that people are looking at. And then the condos that are going up on Taylor Road and Main Street. They're actually, as they say, moving dirt. I'm getting used to the lingo. So they're moving some dirt around out there right now for those things. So you'll start seeing those pop up. The rest of it is hopefully coming soon. We have a number of different things. We have meetings multiple times a week with different developers, and we're also making calls. I know people want to know, why can't such and such a establishment come in here? I know people are looking at like a Trader Joe's or a Cameron Mitchell restaurant, or my personal thing, a Jenny's Ice Cream. Jenny, I'm talking to you. We're getting an ice cream shop here. But those are the things that we are making a call. But the reality is businesses may or may not want to come here. And so what we have to do is we have to try and sell them on what our city can do. And I think we've gotten really good at getting people interested and working with us actively. But the rest of it is dependent upon private transactions between landowners and the developers. We help make connections, we recruit, we try and persuade. But ultimately, when certain things are coming in, it's up to the individual developers. I'll give you an example. The MI Homes that's on Wagner Road. MI expressed an interest in going into that area, and they talked with the property owner long before they talked with us. And that was a deal that was done by the individual property owner and the company itself. Once it got to our level, as far as through Planning Commission, then we have to make sure that things are matching as far as the aesthetics of the community, the traffic flow, and all of that stuff. That's where the city takes over. But keep in mind that these are things that we're working on every single day. I'm hopeful, believe it or not, I'm ready to announce as many things as possible once they become official, once you get that pen to paper and everything is signed off on. There'll hopefully be a couple of things that'll be on the Planning Commission meeting on the 23rd of July. It's a BZBA, a zoning meeting, as well as a Planning Commission meeting that'll give you some ideas of some new businesses coming to Reynoldsburg in the not too distant future. But anytime that there is something, that's those planning commissions are where those things are going to be announced outside of what we do on social media in general. But we are working there every day. Believe me, there's a lot of things that we would like to see in Reynoldsburg. I know entertainment is a big thing, especially for families. So they don't necessarily have to travel outside of Reynoldsburg to go and play putt-putt or go bowling or any number of other things that are going on. We want to bring those things into Reynoldsburg, and we are working hard every day to do it. I talk with our development director, Andrew Boucher, probably about 40 times a day or so. And that's just talking about getting updates and setting up meetings for other things, as well as the big drive, which is, again, it's job creation. So that's kind of the development issue. So again, just keep in mind, be patient with it, and when we have official things to say, we'll put it out there, but know that we are working hard, even with COVID going on. Hot question for you. Census 2020. Have you done it?
I have done
Okay, all right. I know you don't live in Reynoldsburg, and so I don't care the other part if they do well with
Very,
it.
very important.
Yeah, but it is an incredibly important thing to do. We did actually turns to 72% completion in Reynoldsburg, or 72% respondents, which I think is funny because if we're doing a census to find out how many people that live here, how do we know that this is 72% of the people? I'm not sure how it works, but all I know is that everybody has to actually go ahead and make sure they do the census, especially when it comes to like federal funding and COVID money and things of that nature, in addition to the allocation of state representatives and congressional representatives, how important it is for the state of Ohio to have an accurate count. We know that Reynoldsburg residentially it's a hotbed for growth. The average turnaround time for a house being sold in Reynoldsburg is 5 days. That's not a lot of time. So I've talked to a number of people who said they put their house up for sale and it was sold before anybody could actually make an offer that just didn't happen to know the person. So again, there's a lot of people coming into the city. There's a lot of good things going. So we need to kind of handle that with the census. That town just down the road off 256 is still down trailing us. They're about 68.3%. Gahanna's at 78%, so we're pretty much keeping even with Gahanna at this point. Hopefully we can find a way to bump that up when we do some of the more specific locations and everything for the census. And then Columbus, again, they just keep trying. They really do, and I'm really happy that they keep trying. They're about 57.8%. But overall, the state of Ohio is, I think, around 66% when I checked this morning, so we're above what the state of Ohio is. We've already beaten our goal from what we did 10 years ago, so obviously we're doing a good job. But again, make sure that everybody goes ahead and does that. Feel free and let everybody at RPD know that they can make sure they do the census, even if they don't necessarily live in the city.
Pass it on.
Any questions?
We had one last question come in, if you
There's
don't mind.
not one last question for
well,
me.
never.
It's just the next question.
This one's for you,
okay.
actually. And this is just to confirm that the deadline, it says from Malaysia Polar, it says the deadline to submit letters of interest for the Police Commission Committee. Is that still today, since it's going to take a little bit longer to develop?
Yeah, we're going to still take it today just because it's, I guess you'd say it's a popular commission to be looking at right now. But the more people that we have, the better. And then the reality is, once we have what the commission, I don't want to call them requirements, but one of the things that we want to do with the commission is make sure that it is a fair and balanced version of everything. So all sides are being looked at. That maybe sometimes people are interested and maybe they aren't. Maybe we open it back up again once the legislation is out. It's a very fluid thing, but we're just trying to get a handle on how many people are actually interested in the individual commissions right now. So, all right. So that pretty much is wrapping up everything. Just to let you know that next week there will not be a 12 o'clock show with Mayor Joe. I am actually going to be taking some time off. I got a couple days next week for a little bit of a vacation. But we will be back on July 29th, where we will have our very special guest, our very own Sandra Bowler, who's our Director of Human Resources here. And if anybody, the next person in line that's probably dealt with COVID more than you is going to be our Human Resources Director, because we're making sure that all of our employees are healthy. We're making sure that all of our employees stay employed and maintain all of the, the benefits and the hours that they get and things like that. And then the hiring process of what goes on in human resources and how a city runs. So I'm looking forward to having Sandra join us. She's on vacation this week, but I know she's probably watching it right now. Maybe. Okay. Otherwise, that pretty much brings it into our show for the day. I'd like to thank Chief Baker again for coming in and spending some time with us. I'm sure we'll have you back again as we kind of move forward with this. But otherwise, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you in about 2 weeks. So stay safe out there and always be respectful on social media. Have a great day, everybody.